From what I can see, there are a lot of people who are excited about the release of Steam's new hardware. The Steam Frame, Steam Machine, and Steam Controller. To me, they all look amazing, and honestly, I'm hyped about their release because I can move away from Meta and Windows when it comes to gaming. But last week on February 4th, Valve released a blog post on their new hardware called Steam Hardware, Launch Timing, and Other FAQs, answering some of the most asked questions about the Steam hardware. Hello all you wonderful gamers, VR divers, and hardware enthusiasts, and thank you for once again joining me on Weaver's Wonderful World. As always, I'm your host Ginsu Weaver, and in this video we'll be going over Valve's post on the delay of their new Steam hardware. In the post, they said they started the blog in order to address topics around the Steam hardware and will be tackling some of the most asked questions for what they announced on the 12th of November. But before they dive into hardware specific questions, they wanted to get into two questions everyone was asking. When will these be launching and how much will they cost? They go on to say, we planned on being able to share specific prices and launch dates by now, but the memory and storage shortages you've likely heard about across the industry have rapidly increased since then. The limited availability and growing price of these critical components, we must revisit our exact shipping schedule and pricing. So what does this mean for us? Well, they're pushing back the release date and the prices may not be as low as we initially hoped they would be, all because AI is slowly strangling the computer hardware industry. It's not just affecting gaming, it's also affecting anyone who builds and maintains computers, who work on them for their jobs. It's affecting everyone, and now it's even reached Valve. They go on to say, our goal of shipping all three products in the first half of the year has not changed, but we have work to do to land on concrete pricing and launch dates that we can confidently announce, being mindful of how quickly the circumstances around both of these things can change. We will keep you updated as much as we can as we finalize plans. So here's my hope in what they're saying. Initially, many expected the Steam Machine to be around $650 to $700. I don't believe that is feasible now with the pricing of RAM and such going up, but that doesn't mean the pricing will skyrocket either. So I think they'll be pricing around $750 to $800, which still isn't that bad, but I think anything over $900 might just price out a vast majority of people wanting to get this device. For the Steam Frame, I'm expecting around the same price, but maybe $800 to $850 since there's a lot more going into the headset than there is going into the Steam Machine. Now, while I am a bit disheartened about the possible price increase of Valve's new hardware, they did say they are still planning on shipping in the first half of the year. In their initial announcement, they said early 2026, which generally indicates the first quarter of the year, but to Valve that could mean the first half of the year, and because of the predicament they are in, I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt right now. So I'm hoping beyond hope to see all three devices for pre-order at least in April and be released around mid-May, early June. As disheartening as this post is and will be for the vast majority of those who have been waiting for Valve's new hardware, this is unfortunately how the world is now. Though if anybody should be blamed, it should be those causing the artificial shortage. And yes, this is very much an artificial shortage because AI companies, Nvidia and AMD are all feeding into the bubble that is AI in a circular manner that is causing it to expand. Eventually that bubble will burst and we'll all be feeling the effects of that for a long time to come, but I'm not going into that disaster of a business plan, so I'll be leaving that here. There are those that will say Valve's new hardware will be dead on arrival because of those issues that are rising their heads now, but those people have been saying that since the announcement video in November. So take what they have to say with a grain of salt. There will always be people like that on the internet. Valve then goes on to answer a few questions we've all been asking outside of the release date and price. For the Steam Frame and VR, will Steam Frame support other streaming services? Valve responds, SteamOS has a built-in browser and we expect streaming services to work in a theatrical browser mode, which will be a great way to convince at least one of my friends to get the Steam Frame. The next question is, how can I request a Steam Frame developer kit? Valve responds, Steamworks developers can submit a request for the Steam Frame dev kits at a partner site. I'm not going to list this site in the description because I don't know if any developers will be seeing this. So this isn't a way for anyone to get the Steam Frame early, since you have to be registered as a Steamworks developer. Now here's a question I know a lot of people have asked, will Steam Frame work with base stations? Valve responds, it's not something we're working on, but we built the Steam Frame to be modular and extensible so that the community and third parties could build out the features and accessories that are important to them. Meaning, if you're savvy enough, you can get the base stations to work with the Steam frame, or at least still be able to use them with computers for full body tracking. The next question is, can Steam Frame be used while wearing glasses? Valve responds, a bunch of people on the team wear glasses and use the Steam Frame without issue, but it really depends on the width of the glasses frames, and while we don't have details to share yet, we are looking into making prescription lens inserts available ahead of launch. So for a little bit extra, if you don't want to wear glasses, Valve might be providing prescription lens inserts like the ones VRWave provides for Quest headsets. The next question is something I will probably be doing a video on later, but they explain it pretty well here. That question is, I've heard the Steam Frame has foveated streaming. Is that the same thing as foveated rendering? What games support it? Valve responds with, foveated rendering uses eye tracking data so the game only renders high resolution data in the portion of the viewport the player is looking at. Foveated streaming, on the other hand, uses eye tracking data so the PC only streams high resolution data in the portion of the viewport the player is looking at. Since foveated streaming is a system level feature, it applies to all games and requires no game developer work. If a game implements foveated rendering, the benefits of the feature will stack with foveated streaming. So what I had gotten wrong in my Steam Frame specs video was that foveated streaming would work in standalone, but it won't. It will only work when streaming from a PC, which means in standalone the whole screen will be rendered, unless the game has foveated rendering working on a standalone build. The last VR related question Valve answers is about the Valve Index, in which they will no longer be manufacturing the headset, but they will continue to support Index owners the same way they have in the past. Next, they answer some questions a lot of people have been asking about the Steam Machine. First, they answer how well can the Steam Machine play newer, more demanding games on Steam. In our testing, a majority of Steam titles play great at 4K 60 FPS on Steam Machine. That said, there are some titles that currently require more upscaling than others, and it may be preferable to play at a lower frame rate with VRR to maintain 1080 internal resolution. So like I've said before, even with upscaling, not every game will be able to be played at 4K 60 FPS, but that doesn't mean they're unplayable. Valve also said they would continue to work on HDMI VRR and investigate ways to improve upscaling and optimize ray tracing performing in the driver. After that, they answered if third parties will be able to make faceplates for the Steam Machine, and of course the answer is yes. That wasn't any surprise, but what is great though is that they will also be sharing the faceplate CAD file, so anyone with a 3D printer could actually make their own faceplates for it. And I do have my own 3D printer, so being able to make my own faceplates would be great. The last question for the Steam Machine is, what components of Steam Machine are upgradable? Valve answers, Steam Machine's SSD, NVMe 2230 or 2280, and memory DDR5 SODIMMs are both accessible upgrades. The M.2 SSD we already knew was upgradable, but I think a few of us, me included, thought the memory was going to be soldered in. So it's a good surprise that we could potentially increase memory with laptop RAM, potentially increasing performance by a small margin. Lastly, they answered one question about the Steam controller, which is if you can play non-Steam games with it, to which they answered, the controller can work with any game compatible with Steam Overlay. So I'm guessing if you have a game on another launcher, if it's also on Steam, you can, but don't quote me on that, I'm not too sure. All in all, the fact that Valve's new Steam hardware is getting pushed back by a month or two is sad to hear, and naysayers will call it DOA if the price is too high, but you know what? As long as both the Steam Machine and Frame are less than $1,000 a piece, I'm still going to pick them up. I know a lot of people on the net will as well. So don't let the delays get you down, it's just more time for you to save up for them. At least that's what I'm doing anyways. So that'll be the end of this video. Remember, if you enjoyed this content, like the video and subscribe for more like it, and leave a comment down below to keep the discussion going. As well, follow my socials, links to which are in the description. There you can get updates on what I might be doing, video announcements when they go live on YouTube, and the shorts that I make from my other channel, Weavers Gaming, the link to which is also in the description. Also, join my Discord server where we can talk about all things VR, video games, any hobbies you might be interested in, or maybe even play some multiplayer games together. But once again, thank you for joining me on Weaver's Wonderful World, and remember, breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Bacon is the best breakfast food, so eat up, stay healthy, and I'll catch you gamers in the next video. Oorah!